Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Planning, Regulatory and Licensing Committee of Wednesday the 7th of December. Before we start the agenda, I'll ask Eric Morgan to read out the paragraph there about this meeting being recorded.
Please note that this meeting will be recorded for subsequent broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. The public seating area is in view of the camera, and by entering the chamber and using the public seating area, members of the public are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings as outlined above. And if I could just ask the members to make sure their mobile phones are switched off.
Okay, thank you. Now go to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Councillor Simon Williams, Chair.
Any other apologies? Yes, Councillor.
Councillor Alan Jones.
Any other apologies? No? If not, we go on to item 2, any declarations of interest.
Chair, I think I got one on number 5. Land adjunction to illegal. I'm on the Merthyr board on the joint application with Get Together Foundation.
The Merthyr Valley Homes board.
There's a paragraph in it saying that the Merthyr Valley Homes are being a part of it. I don't know. I just want to clear.
Okay. Any other declarations? No? We then go to the open session on the planning applications and the recommendations of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 and the Planning and Compensation Act 1991. First item on the agenda there is P/16/0128, and it's St Mary Meet Pengandy Industrial Estate, Dowlas, and that's to consider report of the Deputy Chief Executive, pages 1 to 18. David Cross is going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this application relates to an area of land adjacent to the main car parking area serving the St Mary Meat Factory, which is located in the Pengandy Industrial Estate. Full planning permission is being sought to erect a single wind turbine with a hub height of 50 metres and a blade tip height of 77 metres, together with the associated foundation and underground cabling works, which would connect it to an existing substation. The proposed turbine would be of the same size and design as the one that's already operational at the site at the moment, on land adjacent to the site, sorry. It's been indicated by the applicant that they intend to utilise the energy from the turbine to power the meat factory, and that this would contribute to approximately 17% of their total energy consumption. It's also been highlighted that there's a need for the development to not only maintain a viable business, but also in turn to help maintain jobs and to become more energy efficient and environmentally friendly. As a result of the consultation exercise, the majority of the responses we received did not raise any objection. However, we did have concerns initially raised by the Brecon Beacons National Park Authority, Caerphilly County Borough Council and CADU and NRW. And this was mainly due to at the time a lack of they required further information on the assessment to review the potential impact on the landscape and historic assets. Further assessments on the landscape and visual impact was carried out, together with an assessment of the historic landscape and the setting of scheduled monuments. Those bodies were reconsulted, and whilst the National Park Caerphilly did not make any further comments, it's noted that both CADU and NRW were satisfied then with the additional information and did not raise any objections to the development. It is worth noting, though, that NRW did highlight that in terms of the cumulative impacts, that they feel that the setting of the national park is now getting close to capacity in regards to wind turbines. So future turbines in the area may be more of a concern. As a result of the publicity exercise, we had one letter of objection which was received and highlighted concerns of potential noise on the amenities of a neighbouring property. If you're familiar with the site, there's a property just to the right as you go into the industrial estate, where there's a garage, and there's a property there which is quite close to it's at a lower level but quite close to the meat factory. A noise assessment was carried out, and it did conclude that there was some potential issue at of noise issues at low wind speeds. However, given the location of the site, with it being in the industrial estate and quite close to the heads of the valley, it was noted in the report that the background noise in the area is likely to fluctuate, and so it wasn't anticipated to be of a particular issue. However, it was agreed with the applicant as well that a condition could be attached to any permission to restrict the use of the turbine at low wind speeds to avoid such potential issues. And this is something that addresses the concerns raised by the Environmental Health Officer as well. The merits of the application have been carefully considered and are set out in the planning consideration section of the report on pages 10 through to 16. And for the reasons set out in this report, it's considered that the proposed amount is acceptable and would comply with the relevant policies. And as such, it's recommended that it be approved subject to the conditions set out on pages 16 to 18. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Any questions from any members? Yeah, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. David, you explained about the land assessment, Cllr and National Parks, but they are now satisfied that we've had information that they are satisfied?
Brecon Beacon National Park and Cllr Council were reconsulted when we had the additional information, but they and I've chased up comments from them as well, and they unfortunately haven't made any further response to the new information. So they've neither objected, as a result of the new information, or withdrawn their concerns initially raised. However, CADU and NRW, they're the two sort of key authorities which look at the potential impact on the historic landscape, and specifically CADU and NRW have reviewed the potential impact on the national park, looking at the views to and fro and the scheduled monuments sort of which sit between the site and the national park, and they're of the view that the impact is acceptable. Taking on board the comments from our countryside officer and heritage officer, it was felt that overall the concerns had been addressed.
One next question never happens, but what happens to the turbine if, sadly, something happens to the factory in St Mirren's that it closes? Who looks after it then?
Well, it's privately owned, so if the factory does close, then they would have to look at other ways of using the energy, which would probably just go back onto the grid or to a new occupant of that factory. There's a condition on there which requires the development, I think it's the second or third condition. So if in the event the turbine, if the turbine condition 3 is for a period of 25 years, and then if for a 12-month period it stops operating, then it should then be decommissioned.
Yes, Councillor Chaplin.
Thank you, Chair. I notice in the report that St Mirren Meat indicate they are seeking ways to lower their carbon footprint. And my question is, how will locating the packaging facility to Cornwall affect their carbon footprint?
Well, if the factory is that's their own sort of management of how they run the business. But in terms of the energy consumption, the business, as I understand it, operates most days of the year. So even if they do move the packaging business, there's still a business there, and and at the moment it's showing that it would reduce their energy consumption by sort of 12%. So even if part of the business is moved away, it's still serving the purpose, as they've said.
I'm sorry, I disagree with that. If by moving the... No.
Are there any other questions? No other questions? Right. Now we're on comments. Comment? Councillor Galsworthy, and then I'll call Councillor Chaplin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I got one or two comments I'd like to make regarding this application. Basically, I'm speaking in support of the application. I'm quite happy to move it in the absence of the Dowless member. I note that part of the planning advice, the National Planning Policy, on page 8, it says the contribution is a proposal. The contribution a proposal will play in meeting identified national, UK and European targets and potential for renewable energy, including the contribution to cutting greenhouse gas emissions, which is all very commendable. I'm very happy with that. Point out also that I think renewable energy should be a major source of energy for our society, bearing in mind the hydroelectric scheme that's recently been opened in the Triaris area. I think these are the areas we should be concerning ourselves with, as opposed to other forms of energy. I was reading a report this week on the Fukushima problem, where one of the reactors was accidentally switched off. The cooling system was accidentally switched off by a workman there, and for over an hour the thing was simply running wild. And these are all circumstances I think we should take into account in these sort of applications. What are the alternatives? I think, to me, the answer is self-evident, that we should be pushing for more renewable energy. I'm very happy to move it.
There's another comment there. Councillor Chaplin.
Yes, it's on page 11, Chair. It's in regard to the proposed development would meet strategic objectives of the LDP, which seeks to safeguard the initial jobs. When was this report written? Because we are aware that there's a proposal to lose 350 jobs at this location.
I was aware of that newspaper article at the time of writing this report. It's my understanding that if the business is not viable, then potentially there could be more jobs lost. So from an economic benefit point of view, if this helps in maintain a viable business, it helps to secure jobs.
Not in Merthyr.
Any other comments, members? No other comments? I think Councillor Galsworthy, you were prepared to move. Councillor Galsworthy moved that. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded. You'll see the recommendation, which is on page 16, with pages 16, 17 and 18, 10 conditions. Can you all vote now, please? Thank you. That's carried. Go back to the agenda. Item 4, that's P/16/0312, Merthyr Tydfil Rugby Club, Cllr and his FARC, and that's to consider report of the Deputy Chief Executive. And it's on pages 19 to 26, and Hugh Roberts will take us through this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application relates to the Merthyr Tydfil Rugby football ground. It's a proposed new sports barn, two new access points and parking spaces. Councillor Chaplin and Councillor Brown have requested this application be reported to committee due to the parking issues associated with the site and the subsequent impact on local residents. Members will recall that planning permission has already been granted on this site for a new sports barn. It formed part of an application that committee permitted on the 20th of July 2016. The reason this revised application has been submitted is because a Welsh Water sewer pipe preventing the training barn being constructed in its approved position. The proposal also includes two new vehicular entrances which would serve two car parking areas consisting of a total of 50 spaces. If councillors look at the location plan on page 19 of the report, the small triangular area in the middle of the plan is the proposed location for the training barn. The other two areas are the proposed car parks. The northern car park would have 34 spaces, the southern car park would have 16 spaces. As a result of the consultation exercise and publicity exercises undertaken, there have been no objections. The principle of a training barn on the site has been firmly established as it has recently been granted planning permission. Its relocation would not have a detrimental visual impact, and the car parking spaces proposed are considered adequate to cater for the facility of this size. Members will note that no objections have been received in this respect from the engineer and traffic group leader. Although the concerns of the ward members are fully appreciated, this application cannot solve the off-site parking problems that have arisen, particularly on match days, due to the success of Merthyr Rugby Club. As such, the application is recommended for permission, subject to the conditions highlighted on pages 26 and 27 of the report. Chair, there is a slight a change on the report on one of the conditions. I've noticed on condition 5, if members are minded to permit the application, it should read, no development should take place in details of the construction of the car parks rather than car park. So if members are minded to permit, then that change will go along with that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Councillor Bill Smith, and then Councillor Barrett, and then Councillor Chaplin.
Chair, can we have a future when we've got the plans in front of us? Can you mark them where's going where? Because we've got three black marks in the centre. So can we, can they mark them so you have a car park, 34 cars in there, 16? It's highlighted what we're talking about.
Yeah, just to confirm, the way we present information to committee is something we are currently looking at, so we'll take that on board and try to facilitate that.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the middle rectangle in the middle, is that us down the car park? Well, it says in the report that the triangle area is the sports barn. Yeah.
In the centre.
Okay, another question. How are they going to get to that sports barn? Sorry.
Yeah, the application site areas just relate to the applicant. What you haven't seen on that plan as well is a blue line boundary which circles the remainder of the site, which is the land in the ownership of or part of the rugby football ground itself. So obviously that sports barn is in the middle of or to the side of an existing rugby field and behind another rugby field. So just walk over to the rugby field to get to the sports training facility.
Put your speaker on.
So I understand. I've played on the field long, but that what you're proposing for the sports barn, the rectangle, is in the middle. Where are they going to get access on? Because the new field now, which is up there last week, is actually like sealed in with the stands and all that. So I just wondering how are they going to get to that sports barn with cars?
Well, they won't get it to the sport barn with cars. They'll have to walk there from the car parking areas. Yeah, sorry.
All right, Councillor Chaplin.
How does this proposal help to reduce the need to travel, encourage the use of transport other than by private car, avoid increasing traffic to unacceptable levels, avoid causing or exacerbating highway safety problems? And that is a direct quote, as you're all aware, of BW12 own council policy?
Yeah, it's a training barn on an existing training facility, which is a sports facility for anyone who's using it. So, to all intents and purposes, people already travel to this facility to use the facility for training purposes and rugby purposes. So, the facility is there, obviously, to encourage a training in an environment which isn't open to the weather, and presumably the players will train in the barn when it's in poor conditions, and maybe outside the barn when it's in better conditions. So in terms of the sustainability of the barn, in my opinion, it couldn't be in a better place, which is linked to the existing facilities of the pitches themselves and the rugby clubs themselves to utilise. You probably go over all around Britain, I should imagine, and have a look at every football club. I should imagine they got an indoor training barn and pitches adjacent to that, because they're all used as one facility, and therefore the sustainability issue of it is the barn itself. Notwithstanding that, planning permission has already been granted for this barn on this site under a previous application as well.
Go on.
You mentioned the previous application. Am I correct in assuming that the area where the barn is going now was initially allocated for parking, and that the initial application there were 200 parking spaces rather than the minimum 83 that we're getting now, and there's no indication on how many of those new spaces will be allocated for disabled people?
Yeah, they still got permission to construct those the majority of those car parking spaces. The barn is proposed on a couple of those car parking spaces. However, its removal from the triangular area to the northwestern part of the site results in additional car parking spaces being provided in that area. I think in terms of the car parking spaces, we've got a facility here for a rugby club to use. Their success has resulted, obviously, in a number of people visiting this site, both as visitors and supporters. The site itself is already there. They can play rugby on that site in terms of coming to play rugby, and visitors can play rugby. So it's not a new use for the site, which is encouraging car parking. It's just the success of the rugby club has resulted in more people visiting this site. So the use is already there.
One final thing, Chair, and actually I will be supporting this application. I've been informed that the rugby club wanted to construct car parking outside of the area which they currently control. There's a piece of scrub land at the bottom of Cllr, but were refused because of its amenity value. Is that correct?
We've never received a planning application on that area of land. However, the rugby club are coming in to meet me on Monday, and it may be a suggestion that they're going to put forward during that meeting. They're coming in specifically to look at the car parking area, so they are aware of the problems in the area, and I understand they're trying to overcome them. But perhaps after that meeting I can let you know, Councillor Chaplin, and advise you whether there's any further information on that. But certainly from a planning application point of view, we've never received a planning application on that area of land.
More questions? You can if you want to. Oh?
So that wasn't raised in any pre-application discussions, the use of this additional area?
I recall we may have had some pre-application on it previously. Of course, pre-application is just advice. It isn't an application, and we weren't aware of maybe the problems that may have occurred on this site due to, I think everyone would agree, is the success of the rugby club, and I for one would want that to continue, to be quite honest with you. But in terms of, we were looking at new circumstances now, so we may have to revisit those comments we made previously, if we made negative comments, which we may have, I can't recall, and revisit those and have a look at alternatives for providing additional car parking in the area.
Okay. Any other questions, members? No other questions? Comments? Comments? There's no comments. Can I refer you to the recommendation at page? Sorry, I'm gonna. Yes, Yeah, you going to move it? Yeah, Councillor Chaplin, and secondly, Councillor Bill Smith. Right, now I refer to page 25. Yes, it is. I think they've all accepted that, but I'll put it to them again. It's subject to the word park being now plural parks. Okay, you all happy with that? Right. Now then, it's been moved and seconded. You're all ready to vote? It's carried. Just my papers. Right, we now go to item 5. That's P/16/0322. That's land at the junction of Heeltime Moor, Lansby Road. And again, it's a report to the Deputy Chief Executive, pages 27 to 36. Hugh, this is yours again.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is for a construction of a 3-storey community centre for Gethley Dig Foundation with an attached single-storey early years wing. Committee will recall that the planning permission has already been permitted for a similar facility on this site in May 2015. I think Councillor Smith, that was the application with Merthyr Homes, also had office proposals with it as well. Therefore, the principle of the development is acceptable. The scale of the building has been reduced from that previous permitted, and the internal layout has been amended accordingly. Some of the external materials proposed also differ from those previously permitted. As a result of the publicity exercise undertaken and consultation exercise undertaken, there have been no objections. Although the building has been amended, it will still have a positive impact on the community and the character and appearance of the area. There would be little impact on surrounding residents, and it can be accommodated without any harm to highway or pedestrian safety. As such, the application is recommended for permission, subject to the conditions highlighted on pages 33 to 35 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Members? No questions. Any comments? No. If not, can I ask for someone to move? Moved by Councillor Chaplin. Is there a seconder? The seconder? Somebody seconded? Councillor Manfred has seconded? Right, we're all ready to vote now. That's been carried. Take it back to the agenda. Items 6 and 7 are information reports. Item 8 is any other, yes, other business?
Agenda number 6. Apparently I was told it was a, we could have attended the appeal or something, or attended the, was this a judicial review or something? Were we informed that we could attend it?
Publicity exercise was done to inform residents and people generally and the objectors of the hearing itself. The procedure is to inform anyone that's commented on the initial application which we've done, but I don't think a particular invitation was sent out to councillors per se.
Can I ask in the future then, if it does evolve, which, you know, I know it's not my ward, but I have been involved in the disputes because it's right next to my ward. Could we be involved in the future, because this has really upset a lot of people again, because it's not just, it is, I know it's not right away registered, but they do walk it, and now they're being deferred and partly by the owner or the site, or people walking. It, you know, it's a, so can we be informed?
You're free to attend any of them. I know Councillor Chaplin has attended hearings before, so yeah, you're free to attend any of them.
I think that's taken on board. We will let you know, and if anybody hasn't been to those sort of meetings, it is interesting.
I see there's no delegated report this time.
I brought it up. I brought it up as well in the pre-briefing. Judith will tell you.
Remember that 1 month a year we have to kind of do a catch-up because of the way the meetings fall, so that's this month. But yeah, well done for noticing.
Right, Is any of the...
And haven't you done well?
Right, is any of the business has been the chair? I have none. Although I have one. What is this though? Comes to mind.
In the previous planning committee, we used to have regular reports at the back of the agenda. How many applications we had in, how many had been processed, and no good hiding behind the monitor, Geraint. To show how we're performing against other councils in the area. We don't seem to be doing that anymore. Is there any particular reason?
Those are you talking about performance reports? Yeah, they get presented to scrutiny committee now. Yeah, they used to be, but now their format is that they get reported to scrutiny.
Why then we couldn't have them put back on the agenda?
That's a decision that was made by CMT.
You had the answer.
Chair, if Brian got an issue, bring it up, you discuss it. If you want it on, it only take 2 seconds, won't it? There's no issues. So do you want it on, Brian? Say yes or no, and we officers will put it on for you.
Right. Okay. I'm still on any of the business. I have no other business. Just to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and just to make sure that I've listened to some of the Welsh lessons, not only Clywyn a blwyddyn newydd dda. And thank you, and declare the meeting closed.